Welcome aboard, everybody. Dr. Peter Glidden here with you on the 15th day of May. That's a Thursday. That means it's Metaphysical Thursday, where we talk about all things having to do with metaphysics, and they strike closer to home than you have been led to believe. If you're a Christian or Catholic or any sect thereof, your intention is to go to church and worship on Sundays. If you're Jewish, you go to temple Friday after sundown through Saturday twilight. If you are a Muslim and you're a man, you normally go to the mosque on Friday. It's mandatory for all Muslim men to attend prayers on this day. Women can attend if they wish. If you're a Hindu, typically you don't go to places to worship unless there's a particular festival, a particular thing that you are attempting to acquire, starting a new business and need good fortune, or starting a new family, need the removal of obstacles, or whatever. Different religions have different days of the week which they worship their deities, individual or collective. Religions worldwide have one thing in common. It's a belief in the divine, a belief in something other than this fleshy material substance. All religions have this one thing in common. It is a belief in the divine, in something beyond the ken of the human mind. Interestingly enough, this phenomenon of spiritualism, this phenomenon of religion, this phenomenon of a belief in a spiritual force, a belief in an unseen metaphysical presence, exists across all nations, across all borders, but it comes to a closed door at your MD's office. MDs are not trained in medicine. MDs are trained in allopathic medicine. Allopathic medicine is reductionistic. And reductionism argues that if it cannot be measured, it does not exist. Since nobody has ever measured the soul, since nobody has ever dissected the spirit, since nobody has ever seen an angel with an MRI, a CT scan, or a video camcorder, therefore, to the allopathic reductionist, they do not exist. Now, if the spiritual force does not exist, if God does not exist, then the human body is reduced to a collection of biochemicals, a bag of biochemicals, which eventually is going to short circuit and something's going to go wrong. And this is the basis upon which all MD treatments are delivered, which is ironic. Because many MDs are deeply religious people in their personal life, but when they go to work, they have to leave all of that behind, which is effectively like, being a Democratic or a Republican senator during the day, but when you go home, you're a communist. Right? I mean, because these two philosophies are diametrically opposed. Either God exists or God doesn't exist. Either you believe in God or you do not believe in God. And if you are a medical professional and you believe in God, then you must consider the question: what is the nature of the relationship between the spiritual force that inhabits the human body and the generation of disease? But the MDs do not consider this notion. They do not consider this question. And in not considering it, they have thrown the baby out with the bathwater. And this is why their therapeutics miss the mark so completely, because they have missed a gigantic datum point. The datum point being that the human body is endowed with a God-given spiritual force. The human body is endowed with God-given intelligence. Your body knows how to manage its affairs. Your body is so smart, it grew itself all by itself from a single-celled organism into you. Now, if it could do that, do you think it knows how to fix itself? Well, every holistic physician in the world resoundingly says yes. Resoundingly says yes. And points to the heart, points to the body, points to the space between the eyebrows, points to the sky. Because this is where the rubber hits the road. If God exists, If there is a spiritual presence, then it is animating the human body. And holistic physicians argue that the spiritual presence animating the human body is responsible for everything that happens in the body. And nobody but the homeopaths, nobody says it better, sums it up better than the homeopaths. Homeopathic medicine is a separate and distinct type of holistic medicine. Years ago, there were homeopathic medical schools and homeopathic hospitals all around the world, but after the Flexner Report and the rise of the pharmaceutical industry in the early 1900s, the homeopathic medical profession withered away into obscurity. The homeopathic hospitals closed, the homeopathic medical schools closed because they could not compete with the money brought to play by the drug industry. Homeopathic therapeutics, by the way, are diametrically opposed to the pharmaceutical industry. Homeopathic physicians give minuscule doses of medicine. Pharmacists, MDs, give massive doses of medicine, and herein lies the disconnect. The pharmaceutical industry could not allow the homeopaths to exist because if they did, they would not be able to compete. Because the homeopaths delivered effective medicines, which were effectively cures for chronic disease, and they were unbelievably inexpensive. So they couldn't have this going on. They had to corner the market. They had to eliminate the competition. So after the Flexner Report, the homeopathic medical profession was waylaid by the pharmaceutical industry. Now, homeopathy, again, is a separate and distinct system of medicine. It has its own diagnostic criteria. It has its own treatment philosophies. It has its own medicines, its own preparation of medicines, its own schedule in the delivery of medicines, and its own unique way of understanding the relationship between human beings and disease. Similar in its uniqueness to a traditional Chinese medical doctor. You ever been to a traditional Chinese medical doctor or an acupuncturist? Well, they talk about wet heat and the triple burner and too much damp energy in the body and whatever. Ayurvedic practitioners talk about the 3 doshas. And they describe and get a handle on the dosha's activity in the body by listening to the pulse. Fascinating systems of medicine, which are extremely unique in their methodology through which they determine the relationship between the human body, health, and disease. Well, the homeopaths, in my opinion, speak to the relationship between the metaphysical vital force, the metaphysical spiritual force, the unseen soul force inhabiting your body, and the nature of disease better than anybody else. I'm going to read you an excerpt from Lectures on Homeopathic Philosophy by James Tyler Kent, MD. Lectures on Homeopathic Philosophy by James Tyler Kent, MD, published by Homeopathic Educational Services in Berkeley, California. Now, this is a lecture that Dr. Kent gave years ago, over 100 years ago. And he is discussing Samuel Hahnemann's understanding of the nature of the relationship between the spiritual vital force and the disease process. Samuel Hahnemann, Dr. Samuel Hahnemann, was the founder of homeopathic medicine, and he wrote the original homeopathic textbook called The Organon of Medicine. This is a quote, a direct quote from The Organon of Medicine, which is the homeopathic textbook written by Samuel Hahnemann over 200 years ago. The material organism, the human body, without the vital force, is capable of no sensation, no function, no self-preservation. It derives all sensation and performs all the functions of life solely by means of the immaterial being, the vital force, which animates the material organism in health and disease. When a person falls ill, it is only this spiritual, self-acting, autonomic vital force everywhere present in the organism that is primarily deranged by the dynamic influence upon it of a morbific agent inimical to life, something that the human body has experienced, like a poison or a toxin or, a bad fish, right? Something like that. That is primarily deranged by the dynamic influence upon it of a morbific agent inimical to life. That's not an easy word to say. It is only the vital force deranged to such an abnormal state that can furnish the organism, the human body, with its disagreeable sensations and incline it to the irregular processes which we call disease. Now, Kent takes off on this and starts to lecture about this paragraph in the homeopathic Bible. Dr. Kent says, to establish freedom should be the aim of the physician. How about that? To establish freedom should be the aim of the physician. And if a physician's work does not result in placing his patient in freedom, he cannot heal the sick. For healing the sick is placing the patient in freedom, giving them absolute physical freedom and mental freedom. If the physician causes the pains to cease by a dose of morphine, can we call that freedom? Is the patient not made stupid beyond the recognition of the nature of his feelings? The large doses of the old school, i.e. the MDs, produce anything but freedom. We must look elsewhere to find that kind of healing, which turns disorder into order and makes man free. By removing the organic, dynamic signs and symptoms of disease in an orderly way, by converting disorder into order so that the symptoms no longer have a cause, we place our patient in freedom, both physical and mental. More on this when we come back after the break, ladies and gentlemen. This is Metaphysical Thursday, and the intention of my little diatribe at the beginning of the hour is to help you think, start thinking about what's really going on in the human body, and therefore gain wisdom, knowledge, and power. Stick around, God willing, back after these messages. Welcome back. Metaphysical Thursday, May 15th, 2014. School is in session. Dr. Kent continues in his lecture on the nature of the spiritual force and the generation of disease in the human body. Only the vital principle, the spiritual energy, the spiritual force which animates the human body, disturbed, can give to the physical body its abnormal sensations and incline it to the irregular actions we call disease. This is totally different from calling the results of disease the disease, calling arthritis disease or cancer or high blood pressure diseases. Most of the conditions of the human economy that are called diseases in the books are not diseases, but are the results of the disease. And I've said this 1,000 times, and this is where I got it from. The tumor is not the disease, it's the result of the disease. The clogged artery is not the disease, it's the result of the disease. The messed up kidney is not the disease, it's the result of the disease. And furthermore, to call a group of symptoms a disease of one part, for instance, arthritis of the left knee, and another group of symptoms a disease of another part, migraine headaches, is a great heresy and leads to errors in treatment that can never be corrected. Organic change is the result of the disease process. Some doctors say, we will have a remedy for cancer someday, having in mind only the symptoms of cancer, that is, the tumor. The symptoms that represent the results of the disease and not the symptoms that represent the disease itself. To think of remedies for cancer is confusion. To think of remedies for arthritis is confusion. To think of remedies for asthma is confusion. But to think of remedies for the patient who appears to have these symptoms is orderly, and you will be astonished to know what wonderful changes will take place in these conditions when remedies that correspond to the conditions before the disease showed up are administered. Before the tumor showed up, before the kidney went south, before the knee became arthritically crippled, I'm going to end the quote here. This is fascinating, right? Because what Kent is saying is what every homeopath in the world says. That it is a disorder in the spiritual body, the vital body of the human body, which grabs hold first. And the disorder, the imbalance, the stress imparted to the spiritual body has manifestations on the physical plane because these two things are connected. And the manifestations of the imbalance to the spiritual body are symptoms. Oh, I've got a pain in my right leg. Oh, I've got a pain in my right temple. Oh, I have a twitching sensation in my left eyeball. Oh, I can't think straight. Oh, I pass out every time I get up from bed. Oh, every time I pee, it burns like fire. These are symptoms of an imbalance. And to the homeopath, paying attention to the symptoms, to the uniqueness of the symptoms, to the distinction of the dynamic symptoms happening in a living, breathing human body are 1,000 times more important in determining a proper treatment to bring the patient into a state of freedom than simply paying attention to the pathological, morbid results of disease. Which is what the coroner does, right? The coroner has no sense of what the pulse was like. The coroner has no sense of what the sensations of the disease were to the affected human being. Have no idea whatsoever. And this is a gigantic disconnect. This is why I encourage you to fire your MD. Not because, they're sadistic human beings, but because they are out of step with what it really means to be a human being. They've thrown the baby out with the bathwater in their complete attention to the results of disease. They have left you in the lurch. You don't believe me? Well, look at what results we've gotten from letting the MDs take care of our health. All chronic illnesses are getting worse. Everything gets worse because the MDs have an old-fashioned, outdated, inconsistent, wrong. They're wrong. The way that they understand the pathophysiology of the body is wrong because they have no working understanding of how the vital force, how the dynamic spiritual force of the body relates to the body in health or disease. Want to watch an MD's head explode? Ask them to define health. Ask them to define health. See what happens. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Dr. Peter Glidden. This is Fire Your MD Now. Sarah from Kansas is up when we come back. Happy Metaphysical Thursday. So before we head on off to the phones and talk to Sarah from Kansas, and then after that it looks like Cecilia from California is up, and then Lee from Utah, Dolores from New Jersey, and David from Wisconsin. I'd like to riff on this a little bit more because, I'm the boss and I get to do what I want. It's good to be the king, right? So, homeopathic physicians are trained to pay attention to the language of the disease process. The language of the disease process is the symptoms that the person's body is generating. For instance, when there's an arthritic thing at play, people may say, well, doc, I have a pain in my left knee. Now, if you went to an MD, that's all that you would need to tell the MD, oh, I have a pain in my left knee. And the MD would then have you shut up, and the MD would spend the rest of the visit in doing objective analysis of the left knee. Ultrasound, CT, MRI, right? Laparoscopic analysis of the joint itself. They don't give a crap about how it feels to you. All they need to know is that that part of your body is troubling you. That's all they're interested in subjectively. The rest you can just, put duct tape around your mouth because they don't give a crap how you feel about it or what the symptoms show up like. But the homeopath does. To the homeopath, the language of the symptoms, the way that the symptoms present themselves in the human body are a direct reflection of how the vital force has been imbalanced. And the symptoms, the discrete expression of the symptoms, offer a key to the cure of the disease. So, for instance, somebody who has a pain in their left knee, which feels like little ants are walking all around the knee, would need a different treatment than somebody who had a pain in the left knee and it felt like someone was hammering an ice pick into it and the pain was icy cold. Someone who had a pain in the right knee, which went away when they walked and came back when they were sitting down, would need a different treatment than somebody who had a pain in the right knee that only was present when they walked and which was completely gone when they sat down. Someone with a headache that felt much better from a cold application, putting ice on the head, would need a different treatment than somebody who had a headache that was aggravated by ice, and so forth and so on. Homeopathic physicians are trained to pay exacting attention to the details of the symptoms. In a similar way to Sherlock Holmes, right? When Sherlock Holmes would investigate a crime scene, Holmes would see stuff nobody else saw. His attention to detail was so unbelievably acute that he could see things nobody else could see. And that's the job of the homeopath. To pay attention to the dynamic symptoms that the human body is expressing, because it is the dynamic symptoms which are a direct reflection of the imbalance of the spiritual force, the vital force. And by paying attention to how the symptoms present themselves and the nature of the symptoms, the homeopath is led to a curative treatment. Now, when an MD completely discounts how the symptomology is showing up, what the language of the vital force is, because remember, they don't believe in the vital force, they completely miss the boat. So they will give you an artificial hip, an artificial knee. They'll give you morphine. They'll give you prednisone. They'll give you something to suppress the symptoms. But in suppressing the symptoms, they make the patient stupid as to the presentation of the organic symptoms and therefore make a cure impossible. And this is why the MDs never cure anything, because their treatments completely miss the boat. They completely miss the boat. A titanium knee for knee arthritis is not a cure. It's a temporary fix at best. Taking blood pressure medication for high blood pressure is not a cure. It suppresses symptoms. And it's only a matter of time until those suppressed symptoms manifest themselves somewhere else. And this leads to something called Herring's Law of Cure, because Herring's Law of Cure is the observation that in patients with multiple illnesses, what will happen is when they get on board with a curative program, with a curative medical treatment, whether it's homeopathy or acupuncture or herbalism or Ayurvedic medicine or medical nutrition or whatever, often what happens is their symptoms, the organic symptoms, disappear in reverse order. So, and often what will happen is things that they had years and years ago which were suppressed by the MDs all of a sudden will pop back. A perfect example of this is the relationship between eczema and asthma. Often what you'll see in children that develop eczema is, well, they're brought to the MD, and the MD gives them tar creams and topical corticosteroids and internal anti-inflammatory medicines like prednisone for months or weeks or years, and eventually the eczema disappears. It's no longer present on the skin. Now, the MDs haven't cured it. They have suppressed it. They have suppressed the symptomology. 2, 3, 4 months, 6 months, 8 months later, that same child now with clear skin develops asthma. Now, the MD will tell you that there is absolutely no relationship between the asthma and the eczema. Because, look, the eczema's gone. They cured it, right? No, they suppressed it. The imbalance that was generating the eczematous condition was still present inside the body, and it was looking for another avenue of expression, and it found it in the lungs. So now the child has asthma. The child's treated for months or years with albuterol and rescue inhalers and so forth and so on, bronchodilators. And then the parents get a clue. They get frustrated with conventional treatment, and they'll take the child with asthma to a holistic practitioner. the holistic practitioner stumbles upon or, discovers, because of their brilliance, a curative treatment for the asthma. They deliver it to the child takes it, and the asthma is cured. Then what happens? Guess what happens next? The eczema comes back. It always comes back. So the lungs clear up, the breathing clears up, the child's breathing like normal, and then a week later, boom, here's the eczema again. Because it was never cured. It was suppressed. And this is called Herring's Law of Cure. It is the return of old symptoms, which were suppressed by conventional medical treatment under the influence of a holistic treatment that actually was curative. And this is completely overlooked by the MDs. And this is why you must never darken their door, because they are completely out of their minds. They've thrown the baby out with the bathwater. They think that the human body is just a bag of chemicals, and it's only a matter of time until that bag of chemicals breaks. They have no understanding of the nature of the spiritual vital force, none whatsoever, which is entirely hypocritical if they go to church or temple or mosque, right? It really ticks me off, especially to see Hindu physicians, because from my point of view, the Hindu religion really has a very sophisticated grasp on the relationship between the spiritual presence, the spiritual force, and the human body. But the Hindu physician, again, locks that part of their mind away when they're understanding how to treat people. It's nonsense. Now, with medical nutrition, this shows up, this relationship between the vital force and the disease process shows up thusly. Holistic physicians practicing medical nutrition. And this is what I do here in the context of longevity, in the context of this radio show. I recommend boilerplate foundation medical nutrition for the masses. That's what I do on this radio program. It's generic boilerplate foundation medical nutrition support. Why does this work? Why is this important? Because it is based upon the fundamental principle that the human body knows how to fix itself, the human body wants to fix itself, and it is the God-given intelligence generated by the vital force present in the human body which directs all of this. So our recommendation is, when you are up against a chronic health condition, feed the body. Feed it. Feed the body. Feed it. Give the body the stuff it needs. Give the body the raw materials it needs. Give the body the essential minerals, the essential vitamins, the essential amino acids, and the essential fatty acids that it needs to fix itself, because the body doesn't work on magic. You need food, you need air, you need water, or you die. Well, guess what? You need 90 essential nutrients every day, or you die slowly. But before you die, you suffer, and then you go bankrupt, and then you die. Why do you go bankrupt? Because what's the most expensive medical therapy? The one that doesn't work. So this is the axis through which science-based, clinically verified, holistic medical nutrition interfaces with the reality of the human body-mind, which is that there is a spiritual presence, a vital force, which is dictating every single freaking thing that goes on in your body. And we just support that. It's all we do. I have the easiest job in the world, for goodness sake. We give the body what it needs. We counsel people to stop eating stuff that's coming up the works. We get the heck out of the way, and we let the vital force fix it. Now, after you've been nutrified, and your body's mineralized for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months, and you're not eating the bad food, and your body starts to climb back to health, you start burning on all 16 cylinders again. Things start to work the way that nature intended them to. If then you come up against a health condition that medical nutrition is insufficient for, when you bring your nutrified body to a homeopath, to an Ayurvedic practitioner, to a holistic practitioner, to a traditional Chinese medical practitioner, an acupuncturist, the results that they are able to generate in your body eclipse in effectiveness the results that they could generate in a weak, sickly, undernutrified body. See how that works? The vital force, it's a give and take, right? It's the yin and yang. It's the, one hand feeds the other. You need to feed the body the nutrients that it needs in order to optimize its structure and function, and you need to stop eating crap that's coming up the works. We counsel you how to do this. Now, most of the time, that's all that's necessary to bring people back into a state of freedom. Remember, which is the goal here. By the way, you know what the definition of health is? Health is the ability of a living organism to experience stress and remain symptom-free in a state of dynamic equipoise. Now, put that in your pipe and smoke it. For goodness sake, ladies and gentlemen, give your body the stuff that it needs. Give your body the stuff that it needs. Nutrify your body. Stop eating crap that's coming up the works. And see how far that takes you. Often, it's sufficient to the cause and it takes you all the way. But if it doesn't take you all the way, then you can clean up the rest easily with a good holistic, treatment generated by a licensed physician, skilled in real medicine, skilled in effective curative medicine. And that beats a poke in the eye with a sharp stick or a shot of morphine any day. All right, I'm making a promise now. Sarah from Kansas is up when we come back. I'm Dr. Peter Glidden. Guess what? This is Fire Your MD Now. Welcome back, everybody. Hope you learned something today. Hope you learned something here every day. That's the goal. Let's see what Sarah in Kansas is up to. Hey, Sarah, thanks for waiting. You are live.
Hello.
Hello, Sarah from Kansas. What's shaking?
No, actually, I'm standing at a track meet, watching my son.
Well, I hope he's taking Rebound FX.
He is. He's trying anyway.
There is no try. There is only do or do not.
he's got a few teams to go against, so he's working on trying to go to regionals. So that is a yes.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'm going to answer your question about fatty tissue liver disease here in a minute, but this is a point that I don't want to pass up. The Rebound FX was dialed in over the course of 2 years with Theo Ratliff. Longevity started with one particular formula. They gave it to Theo, and then they tweaked it, and then they tweaked it again, and then they tweaked it again, and then they tweaked it again based on his experience when he was playing on the court until they found, virtually the perfect formula. So people who are involved in athletics on a regular basis,
yes,
have the direct experience that when they take Rebound FX, their recovery time post-exercise is much better. Their performance on the field is much better. They get results from the Rebound FX compared
much
especially
better
to vitamin water or Gatorade, right?
Oh, wonderful. That's good to know because I am actually going to buy I'm going to start selling the products actually, and become a distributor. So
that's great.
That is one of the products I was going to get. So I'm glad to know that.
Yeah, it's necessary for your son. Your son's going to feel much better in his performance when he takes this stuff instead of Gatorade or vitamin water. The proof of the pudding's in the eating. So, how can I help you, Sarah? What's your question?
Okay, my question, I guess my concern for myself is I just have recently found out all this. I have extreme fatigue, which goes along with this, and weakness, which goes along with this, and the balance and stuff. My concern is they keep saying that my diet and my exercise is a mess because that's how you cure it. Okay, so the catch-22 is if I'm so tired, how am I supposed to exercise?
Well, they're wrong.
Okay.
They're wrong. I mean, they're wrong. That's how you cure it. They're wrong. Actually, if you were to exercise, this would get much worse. Because the thing that makes people tired, beyond the norm is lack of nutrients. Your body has run out of the essential nutrients that it needs to work properly. It's kind of like, your car has run out of oil and it hasn't been tuned up in 35 years. So the recommendation here for you to begin with for the first 8 weeks is really pretty straightforward. We just do foundation medical nutrition for you. And I'm going to bet you 25 cents that within 4 weeks of taking this stuff, your energy is going to pop right back and you're going to feel great.
Okay, it's called Foundation.
Well, how much do you weigh? I'll tell you what to take.
I weigh right now in less than half of a week. I dropped from 220 to 211.
Okay, so here's what I would do. I would just get 2 Healthy Start Packs, original formula. 2 Healthy Start Packs, original formula. And I would just take those for 2 months.
For 2 months, okay.
Yeah, 2 of them. It's 1 for 100 pounds of body weight per month. So 2 Healthy Start Packs, original formula, would be a really good place for you to start. And if you really want to take it to the next level, I would also eliminate the 10 bad foods from your diet. And you can download that list for free on my website. Just go to drglidden.com, scroll down the front page until you see the list for the 10 bad foods. So eliminate the 10 bad foods.
Okay.
And do 2 healthy start packs a month.
All right. Well, I'll start that and work on that and stuff. But I have a friend, Vincent Christine, that told me to give you a call and talk to you about it, and we're gonna be each other's backup and guru to get started on this business. So
all right, you go, girl. I appreciate you very much. You're welcome.